200 by Heathbrook. We offer same-day primary care, self-pay office visits starting at $79, and Liquivita, the #1 vitamin infusion therapy in the U.S. For more information, check out our Facebook page or call 352-504-0092. That's 352-504-0092. Celeria Urgent and Primary Care.
Howdy folks, RL here for Dairy Queen again to tell you about what's hot and what's not. Dairy Queen has some of the best char-grilled chicken breasts on earth, as well as their chicken breast salad. And the burgers are exceptional, cooked on a real grill for the best flavor and less fat. And for dessert, blizzards are unequaled. Personally, banana split is my all-time favorite. Dairy Queen Silver Springs, where we always treat you like kings and queens.
The Ocala Golf Club, one of Ocala's premier golf courses, from its pristine 18-hole course layout to its amazing pro shop. Jason Linhart and the staff at Ocala Golf offer everything that you need for your golf outing. That's the Ocala Golf Club. Experience country club style golf at municipal prices. You won't go wrong with the Ocala Golf Club. Call them for a tee time today, 352-401-6917.
Now you've done it. Have you lost your mind? He's back. And you're listening again. A legend in his own mind. Don't believe me? Just ask him. Here's Tom Schmitz live on WOCA. The Source.
Welcome back to Ocala Talks. On a Thursday, tonight in prime time, they'll be putting that debacle on TV again. The committee hearings on the January 6th riots at the Capitol. It'll go prime time again tonight. They want you to see the display. And, you know, people are on both sides of the aisle. Now there's a new study out from Harvard University that it said that they found out the motivation, and the data is clear, the motivation for the January 6th riots. The motivation is clear. Researchers from the Shorenstein Center of Media Politics and Public Service at Harvard University wrote that far and away we find the two most common cited reasons for breaching the U.S. Capitol was a desire to support President Trump on January 6th in D.C., and concerns about election integrity. Now, the mainstream media will tell you, well, Donald Trump fueled the election integrity. I would tell you that seeing video of poll workers in Georgia after the polls closed, going back in and reaching under the table and pulling out boxes of ballots and feeding them into machines might have led some people to think there might have been some election integrity, issues. I believe there's election integrity issues in every election. I know for a fact that these mail-in ballots lend a lot of that integrity issue because my wife's grandmother, who's been dead for over a decade, she passed away over a decade ago, still gets ballots in the mail. In a state where you're supposed to request a ballot and your signature's supposed to be checked and everything. So if it happens here, with the rules we have, you got to figure it happens everywhere. Do I think Donald Trump lost because of election integrity issues? No. I believe Donald Trump lost because the mainstream media became an arm of the Democratic Party as as a way to sway electorates. I believe instead of being the fourth institution, the mainstream media became the arm of the Democratic National Committee because they didn't like the businessman from New York that couldn't be controlled. However, that being said, do I think what happened January 6th, we should look the other way? Hell no. You cannot storm the Capitol the way they did, breaking things, kicking doors in. And I know, well, Tom, some people let them in other entrances. I understand that. I get that. There may have been some people sympathetic to the issues. But we have we have made it a priority that we have a peaceful transfer of power. That's what makes us better than any other country in the world. A peaceful transfer of power. That didn't happen. And for people to say, hey, you need to let them out of jail. They don't need to be prosecuted. They don't. Let me read to you what somebody sent me. This is a listener that goes, I'm as Republican as you can get. All these talk radio hosts and people on the news talk about the people from January 6th should be let out of jail. Could you imagine if this had happened in the 60s, 70s, or 80s? They'd have been beaten or killed in the 60s, gone directly to jail, did not pass go in the 70s and 80s, and everybody acts like it's okay for what they did January 6th. I know this is not what most Republicans or supporters of Donald Trump want to hear, but that's fact. And that's a very good point. If they had been done this in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, the outcome would have been just, especially in the 60s. If Martin Luther King, when they took to the mall in 1963 when he made the I Had a Dream speech, could you imagine what would have happened to those people if they'd have marched on the Capitol that day? Could you imagine what would have happened to Vietnam protesters in the 70s if they'd have marched on the Capitol or marched on the White House? Hell, they got slaughtered at Kent State. Imagine what would have happened if they'd done that in Washington, D.C. But we're supposed to give these people a pass because they were doing it to try to help Donald Trump win an election that they felt was stolen from him? No. Like the person said that sent that in, he's as Republican as you can get. And he is. I know him personally. He's as Republican as you can get. Do I think this spectacle that they put on TV is worth it? No, it's useless. But that doesn't mean I don't think people that stormed the Capitol and people that broke the law shouldn't be prosecuted. And like the listener said, could you imagine if civil rights activists had done this in the 60s? They would have been killed on the spot, dogs sicked on them, water cannons on them. We know this because we saw it done in Los Angeles during the riots in Watts. We know this because we saw it on the bridge in Selma. If the Vietnam protesters, who I have no love for, believe me, I got no love lost. I got no, I'm not a sympathizer with the Vietnam protesters. The way they spit on servicemen and women that came back and the way they spit, showed no respect. I got no use for that. But could you imagine if Vietnam War protesters had stormed the White House or stormed the Capitol? They'd have been shot and killed. We know that. They were shot and killed on the campus of Kent State University in 1970 for throwing rocks. So we know how that would have happened. But yet we want to give these people that stormed the White House because they were trying to protect Donald Trump and save his presidency and take back an election that was stolen from them, according to them. We're supposed to just give them a pass. No. Now, do I believe that something seriously needs to be done with election? Yeah, 100%. I'm a firm believer that you should be an American citizen and should have to prove it to be able to vote. Or you should meet the criteria that is set aside by each state, by the way. The states decide how you vote. It's not a national thing. Each state decides on how their citizens vote. But the things like a signature, things like an ID should be you. Hell, we got to have an ID to get into a movie that has an R rating. That's more important than voting. There are things that need to be addressed with voter integrity and voting in general. But you don't address them by storming the Capitol. You don't address them by trying to stop how the Constitution says elections are supposed to go. And that's what this group did. And if a group of civil rights activists in the 60s had done it, or a group of Vietnam War protesters in the 70s had done it, or if Antifa, which some people say, oh, they were there, Tom, that's who did all this, it wasn't Donald Trump supporters, or if the Occupy Wall Street people had done this, that took over Wall Street or took over the Portland business, they'd have done this, the same people that are saying, oh, we need to let these people out of jail would have been like, you should have shot those bastards. But because it's people that you agree with politically, you think, oh, we should just let them out of jail. Can't have it both ways, folks. We got serious issues with elections here, with the amount of people that can vote, that you don't know whether they're dead, you don't know whether they're citizens. There's a lot of things we can address, but you don't do it by storming the Capitol building. And you don't address them by putting Senate committee hearings on national TV in prime time either. That's grandstanding. That's not a solution. Storming the Capitol building, that's not a solution. Those are reactions. We need real solutions. We need voters that have to register and their signature and their ID are used every time they go to the voting booth to make sure it's who they are. We need to have voting rolls purged from people that are dead, or if your state doesn't allow incarcerated people to vote, that they're taken off the rolls. There's a lot of different solutions that can be used. Storming the Capitol ain't one of them. And those that stormed the Capitol should be held accountable. It was a gross, gross day in our history, January 6th of 2021. And the people that perpetrated the attack on the Capitol need to be prosecuted. Period. Just as you would have said that if it had been civil rights activists, if it had been Occupy Wall Street activists, if it had been Vietnam protesters, if it had been people that were protesting the war in the Gulf, all of those people, you would have been like, lock those bastards up, whatever needs to happen. But because it's people you agree with politically, a lot of you are saying, oh, look, all they did, they felt like they had been cheated out of an election. They were exercising their rights as Americans. They shouldn't be put in jail. Well, then if that's the case, no protester that violates any kind of law like that should ever be put in jail. And you know better than that. We'll take a break. We'll come back and wrap up this edition of Ocala Talks on 1370 AM, 96.3 FM. This is WOCA, The Source.
Know what you want to do in retirement, but do you know how to get there? Join Gary and Don Crawford of Pinnacle Retirement Advisors for Retirement with Pinnacle, Saturday mornings at 9 to get answers to your retirement planning questions. Plan today so you can do the things you've always dreamt about doing in retirement. Don't miss Retirement with Pinnacle with Gary and Don Crawford, Saturday mornings at 9. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
Think you know Dex Imaging? Think again. In the office, streamlining communications. In the field, delivering top-notch service, enhancing productivity, and reducing downtime.